everyone, and welcome back to the Wisdom by Harry YouTube channel. My name is Harry.
And I'm Mary. We're so excited to have you here today for another fascinating episode.
Memorial Day 2025. So today we're doing a deep dive, really focusing on how this day of remembrance played out, especially the events over at Arlington National Cemetery.
Yeah, and we'll also look at some of the other conversations that were happening around it just to get a fuller picture.
Right, get that broader understanding.
And it really struck me, looking through the material, how you almost see these two, distinct ways Memorial Day was approached. You have the very formal, very solemn observance, at Arlington, and then something quite different playing out elsewhere, particularly online.
Okay.
So our goal here really is to unpack those key moments and maybe understand the different perspectives that come through, how we sort of process remembrance now.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So Arlington, let's start there. The ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, that felt pretty central, didn't it?
Absolutely central. I mean, right away you have President Trump, Vice President Vance, Defense Secretary Hegseth, all there. That signals the official weight of the event.
Yeah, the significance.
Yeah, exactly. And the reports really highlight those powerful, familiar moments we expect. The silence, the playing of taps, the salute, it's all part of that ritual, connecting back through history.
And beyond the officials, the fact that Gold Star families were present, that's just so important. It grounds the whole thing, reminds you who it's really for.
It really does.
We even got some details about specific individuals honored. Those stories, I think, are just critical to hear.
They really are. Take Senior Chief Petty Officer Shannon Kent, a linguist cryptology technician working with special forces in Syria, a woman in such a demanding role. That's a powerful story of dedication.
Definitely.
A story that absolutely deserves remembering.
And then there was Senior Master Sergeant Elroy Harworth, lost in Vietnam. And learning his son then went on to serve 2 decades in the Army.
Wow, that says so much, doesn't it, about a family's commitment, generation after generation.
Yeah, or Army Corporal Ryan McGee, enlisting right after 9/11, 3 tours in Afghanistan, then Iraq, and dying so young. It's just, these aren't abstract names.
No, not at all. They represent such immense personal sacrifice, and what's interesting is how Arlington, that formal setting, kind of becomes the stage to elevate these individual stories.
Right.
So when President Trump called the fallen great, great warriors and America's best and bravest, it connects that individual loss directly to, preserving the nation's freedom.
Vice President Vance's remarks also stood out. That line about those who gave up their moments for hours, that really distills the essence of the day, I thought.
It does powerfully. And he also touched on the gravity, the caution needed when deciding to send people to war. That adds another dimension beyond just remembrance.
Like a layer of responsibility.
Yes, exactly. A consideration of the choices that lead to these sacrifices. And you had Secretary Hegseth talking about the unknown soldier as embodying that ultimate sacrifice.
Right.
And General Kane speaking about the high standards set by the fallen and their families. It all reinforces just how profound this day is meant to be.
So, okay, a very traditional, deeply respectful ceremony at Arlington. But the information we looked at also points to, a completely different vibe online, right?
Yeah, that contrast is pretty stark. The shift in tone is immediate. Earlier in the day, you see social media posts that are much more, shall we say, aggressive?
Aggressive is one word for it. Politically charged, definitely.
Very much so. And far removed from the kind of solemnity we just talked about at Arlington. The use of all caps, for instance, usually signals, intense emotion.
And the targets were really specific too. Former President Biden, federal judges, immigration stuff. The language was pretty forceful.
Oh, absolutely. Phrases like scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country, aimed at a former president, accusations about an open border. I mean, that's clearly meant to provoke and reinforce divides.
Yeah, very partisan.
And similarly, calling federal judges USA-hating judges or monsters because of rulings on deportation policies, that's incredibly inflammatory stuff.
It really is. It feels difficult to square that kind of rhetoric with the unifying idea we often associate with Memorial Day.
Exactly.
And then there was that Happy Memorial Day post, which apparently got some backlash.
Right, and that really gets to the heart of what the day signifies. As Vice President Vance himself had pointed out previously, saying, Happy Memorial Day, kind of misses the point entirely.
Because it's not a celebration.
No, it's meant to be a day of mourning, of remembrance for those who died serving. It's not, the 4th of July or Labor Day. It has a very specific, somber meaning.
Okay, so we've got these two completely different ways of communicating happening almost side by side on the same day. What does that suggest, maybe about broader political strategies?
Well, it's interesting to think about whether that juxtaposition is intentional. The traditional honoring of symbols like at Arlington happening alongside this much more aggressive online messaging.
Like appealing to different groups.
Yeah.
Or projecting different things.
Could be. It might be a way to speak to different parts of a base or to project both reverence for tradition and a combative political stance simultaneously on a major national day.
And the presence of Vance and Hegseth at Arlington, does that tell us anything specific about their influence, maybe?
Well, their prominent participation certainly underscores how important those traditional displays are within certain parts of the Republican Party, especially when it comes to defense and veterans.
Right.
But, the bigger question remains, does the overall tone of the day, when you factor in that social media activity, actually promote national unity on a day like Memorial Day? That's debatable.
Yeah, it raises questions. And even at Arlington, there were these brief political notes, weren't there? President Trump mentioning fixing the republic after a long and hard 4 years.
Right, and referencing future events, the nation's 250th birthday, the World Cup, the Olympics, and that comment about missing that second term. So even within that very solemn setting at Arlington, those brief political references kind of weave in the ongoing political narrative, maybe linking remembrance with themes of national pride and future goals.
So wrapping this up then, we saw the traditional, very solemn ceremony at Arlington, really focused on honoring individual sacrifice, using powerful rituals, personal stories.
Yes, deeply rooted in tradition.
And then, almost in parallel, this much more aggressive, politically charged tone playing out on social media earlier in the day. Quite a contrast.
A stark contrast indeed. But ultimately, the core purpose of Memorial Day, of course, remains honoring those who died serving the country.
Absolutely.
The events we've walked through, especially that contrast in how the day was marked, they do make you think, don't they?
Yeah.
About how we observe these national traditions now in our current public discourse.
Yeah, which leads us nicely to our final thought for you, the listener. Maybe reflect on the complexities here. How do these different ways of communicating the solemn ceremony versus the online rhetoric shape how we understand a day like Memorial Day?
And what does it signify when we see such different tones coexisting on a day that's fundamentally about remembrance and sacrifice?
Definitely something to mull over. How do we balance remembrance with